Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, Savvies, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In today's episode, we're talking all about how to know when it's time to outsource your podcast. So let's jump right into the episode. So I have 4 reasons for you that it might be time to outsource your podcast. So we're going to kind of go one by one and get into it. So reason number 1, you're struggling to get your episodes out on time. I know this is a really big one. You get super busy and backed up. You haven't batched your episodes and you are working to the 11th hour to get it out, your episode recorded, your show notes written, everything. You're trying to get it all done at the last minute. That might mean that it's time to outsource your podcast, whether that's just the editing piece, whether it is everything but the recording portion, obviously, because that's the only thing that you really can't outsource. There's just you just don't have the time or the bandwidth to actually get your episodes out on time because you are, very busy. We're all very busy. So that is one indication that you will need to, or it might be time for you to outsource your show, whether that is parts of it or the entire thing minus recording. Reason number 2. Okay, so you're not struggling to get your episodes out. You're not struggling to do any of that, but your podcast is not growing. So I know typically, I'm sure you've heard me say this a million times, but it takes about a good year for your podcast to really see that growth. Podcasting is a slow burn thing. It is not something to get into if you expect to see instant results, because you're not going to, and you're going to be disappointed. But if it's been over a year now that you've been podcasting and you're not seeing any significant growth with your show, that doesn't mean you should completely stop your show. A lot of the times that means you just aren't reaching the people that are going to benefit from your show. So in this case, you could use someone like a podcast manager or a podcast marketer or someone to help you get more ears on your show, because obviously it's great to have a small amount of listeners. It's great to have any listeners at all. But if your show isn't growing consistently, and I'm not talking like millions of downloads a month, like that's a little unrealistic, but if your show isn't growing each month, at least a tiny bit, then there's something that needs to be fixed, whether that is your marketing, your messaging, anything like that. So that is a good reason to hire help. So in this case, you would hire someone that has the expertise to help you grow your show. Reason number 3, you just want to improve your podcast quality. So if you are currently doing all the things with your show, whether that's editing, show notes, or everything, you likely are not a classically trained audio editor or even writer. So, nor maybe you don't even have the time to learn how to edit better, or the time to learn how to write better show notes, or even just to write better show notes in general, not even learn how to do it, just to actually do it. Like you're doing the bare minimum when it comes to your show notes because you just don't have time. So hiring someone to help with those things, like a podcast manager, a podcast strategist, will really help you improve your podcast quality, whether that's the audio quality, whether that's your show notes quality, or like the whole thing across the board. It's really beneficial to bring someone on board to improve the quality, because your podcast shouldn't sound the way it sounded on day 1. You should be improving over time, whether that's with your audio quality or just, what you're doing with your show, or even your confidence in general. So a podcast manager or podcast strategist can really help you improve your podcast sound quality or show notes quality, elevate your entire podcast presence, essentially. And lastly, reason number 4, you are leaving crucial elements out, like show notes or even promoting your show, just due to lack of time. So you're running on the bare minimum, you're putting out your actual recording. It sounds okay, but it's not great. but you're not doing show notes because you don't have time to do those. You are literally just throwing the episode out there and hoping that people will listen, and you're not taking the time to actually promote your episodes because you just don't have the time to do it, or you don't make the time to do it, wherever that case is, you're not doing it. And obviously your show isn't growing because you're not taking the time to be strategic about it. So you don't want to leave these crucial elements out, and you really could benefit from someone to help you with those and get some stuff off your plate so that you can focus on recording really amazing episodes while still having, making the most bang for your buck out of those episodes with that help. So those are the top 4 reasons why it might be time to outsource your podcast. And you're sitting here thinking, oh, wow, this is me. Like, I really could use some help with my show. I've been doing it by myself for the past 6 months, the past year, however long you've been doing it alone. You're not alone. And if you're ready to take that step and outsource your podcast, I'd absolutely love for you to join me as a student in the Outsource Your Podcast mini course, which just went live this week. I've had this idea for a while, but I hadn't had the time to sit down and craft the lessons for you guys. But now I've had time, and it's great. It's only $27, and it's going to teach you how to get your podcast set up for success so that you can hand it over to a VA. You can hand it over to a podcast manager or strategist. You can feel confident about it, and not like there's going to be a lot of like a learning curve to actually hand over the reins to someone else. So if you want to grab that course for only $27, make sure to head to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/outsource, and you will be able to get that course right then and there. It will be available to you. It's pretty quick, should take you under an hour to get through. So go ahead and get that if you want to outsource your podcast anytime soon. If you're planning to in the next 6 months, the next year, go ahead and grab that course. You will thank me afterwards, trust me, because it'll just help you so much with that whole mindset hurdle and getting yourself organized to bring on help for your show. So I would love to hear from you. Are you planning on outsourcing your podcast anytime soon? Let me know on Instagram. My handle is @jenny.sunnison. I'd love to know what your outsourcing plans are. So hit me up in the DMs over there. But in any case, if you want to check out the show notes for this episode, you can find them at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com. And I will see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.